Oh, well, you find it very different up here. There's some very funny people in this street.
Coronation Street is a television phenomenon.
I think the only time we'd have another civil war in this country if they took Coronation Street off the television.
To live Corrie is to breathe Corrie, and it's more of my home than my home.
Come on, buy me some bling. Come on.
Oh, Coronation Street, you make my life so sweet. It's in my blood, it's in my DNA.
We've been glued to the lives of the residents of this cobbled back street for an astonishing 6 decades.
It's from a job interview.
What job?
Prostitute. It's mind-blowing, isn't it?
Is to do with this quality of heart.
And throughout its entire history, Coronation Street has put women centre stage.
Ow! Thank you, lucky stars, you were too tight to buy me the hardback. The writers, I think, have always loved hard-hitting women characters.
Not gorgeous, glamorous women. It's about real women.
So you're Elsie Tanner.
Tonight, we salute the women of Weatherfield.
Well, it can only get better to life.
And loads more wine.
We applaud their strength.
Try it and I'll have your eyes out.
She was dead hard. You really, really wouldn't want to cross her.
Keep that out, will you? You might just catch it on an handbag.
She didn't take any messing from anybody.
We reveal their softer side.
I keep blaming myself, but it's you, Charlie.
I love the fact that these strong women have got chinks in their armour.
And we celebrate their humour.
What's that lipstick taste of?
Woman, Stanley. Woman.
That was wonderful. That's Corrie. That's Corrie.
No! Sometimes not meant to be comedy, but there we are.
And the first ladies of Coronation Street tell us how the show has made them what they are today.
Hard work and not moan and don't get ill.
Working on something like Corrie is the best training for an actor that you can possibly get.
If you can do Coronation Street and hold a big story, you can do anything.
For 60 years, women have been at the heart of Coronation Street.
It's always been a tradition of the women running the show, you know, and running the shop and being in charge. Sometimes quietly behind the scenes and sometimes in a very front-footed way.
I did used to be able to pull the birds, didn't I, or imagine?
You must have been a lot younger and better looking or something.
It's about real women who are vulnerable, strong, feisty, weak at times, and no show does it better than this one does.
And the man who dared to put Northern women at the centre of a television drama was a young actor called Tony Warren, who, back in 1960, had a revolutionary idea for a TV series. Set on the cobbled back streets of a grimy northern town, with a pub at one end and a shop at the other, Coronation Street would simply follow the intertwined lives of the everyday folk who lived there. And from the beginning, it was the women who jumped off the screen.
Oh, I'd expect you to know something like that. Every lying bit of gossip that goes about what you don't know, you make up. We don't need sewers around here. We've got Ina Sharples.
Somebody stop her!
Well, they never do. They just stand back till the fighting starts.
I think that anybody who's grown up in a northern working-class town will recognise that sort of matriarchal society, you know, where women are just running the homes and the streets. And I know that for Tony Warren, his very being, all his stories, the way he spoke, everything about him came from that grounding of being brought up by women in a back street in Salford.
Commoners mock them. I entirely agree with you, Mrs. Ogden.
The women were important. As Tony would say, he based the whole show really on what he would hear hiding under the table when his aunties were round, gossiping with his mother and with his gran. And all those sayings and all that kind of hierarchy of the family and the community was what he learned hiding under that table.
They were all individual characters. None of them were the same. They were all strong women, but all very, very different. Really wonderful. And we all took them to our hearts and we loved them.
She just sat up, broke wind and died. We're all having the same again, girls.
When you actually look at those first women in those first programmes, I mean, they were iconic, weren't they? They were extraordinary. And I think everybody that's come after them has just followed on in their footsteps, really.
And here was a first. This revolutionary new drama hired northern working-class actresses to play northern working-class women.
Oh, don't worry, Elsa. This lady's just going.
This lady's not going anywhere till she's had her say.
Well, do you mind if I get mine in first?
There were no soaps when we started. We were a cutting-edge drama serial. It was the new realism sweeping the theatre. We were it on television. We were the kitchen sink drama. That's why we shot straight up when we came on screen. No one could believe it.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know you had company. Yeah, and before you jump to any exciting conclusions, we're just good friends.
I think Coronation Street was the first television that broke through into that working class community, because it didn't have a voice before. If you were northern, you played the person who was sweeping the steps or something in somebody else's rather grand drama. You weren't the person out there being the important person. It was just ignored.
Tell me you love me still.
Huh? Hey, go on with you. You're not but an awful spot. I love you. Will that do?
It was quite scandalous, the show at the time, because there had never been working class accents, really. I mean, in those days, newsreaders would dress in dinner jackets and ties, and the women would have ball gowns.
This is the BBC television station at Alexandra Palace.
And then you watch something like Coronation Street and you could recognise every single person on it. You could say, I know someone like that. That's what my house is like. That's what my street's like. That's what my community's like.
Not only was it unheard of that you'd have non-RP women, northern women, on television, but they'd be women that you saw every day down your own local street, and people could really relate to that.
Scheduled to last only 13 weeks, viewers were immediately drawn to the gritty daily dramas of the lives of actresses who looked and spoke just like they did. And Coronation Street was an instant hit.
Hey, ma'am, we've got a visitor.
Oh.
Me dad.
Thank God we've finished.
Eh?
I never could abide men who were going bald.
The magic has survived for 60 years, with the show now broadcasting a staggering 6 episodes a week. Women still rule the roost in Weatherfield, and with some of the brightest names in television drama having got their break on the show, just what is it about Coronation Street that breeds such outstanding female talent?
Working on something like Corrie is the best training for an actor that you can possibly get, I think, mainly because of the sheer amount of pages you get through in a day.
Hard work. Learn how to do it and get on with it and not moan and don't get ill. Stamina.
It's not easy, is it?
Oh, you can say that again.
We very rarely have time to rehearse anything. Typically, the actors go onto the set, the director will do a line run, they'll block the scene and they'll shoot it. And depending on the length of the scene, it'll all be done and dusted in between 15 and 30 minutes, an entire scene.
It was unbelievably difficult at the time, but it really sets you up for the rest of your career in the fact that you never have to worry about lines. You have a short-term memory muscle, and lines are never a problem. If it's written well, it sorts that nonsense out.
Corrie's very, very fast, especially now it's gone 6 times a week. So you have to be on top of the game. You know, you come in ill. You have to rely on the tools in your toolbox to get you through that day for that, and also bring out your character and also bring things to the scene and also know where you are. And the cast are brilliant at that.
If you can do Coronation Street and hold a big story, you can do anything.
And in Coronation Street, you'll be required to act every emotion in the space of a working day.
You're very huggable.
It's all filmed out of order. So you might be burying your husband like on Monday morning and then marrying him on Tuesday afternoon. It's completely crackers.
So you'd be running through the green room, I'd had a change in the toilets, and I'd be out on the cobbles and doing the scene then, come back again, and then the bar had been set for another day, another costume. And the way I got through it is on the top of every scene, I just put a little line of what had happened before and what was going to happen after. Then I was back in the game. Crazy.
I've completely forgotten your name. Isn't that awful? It's Tina. Tina! I knew it was something really ordinary.
I know this sounds ridiculous, but it's like being an athlete in a sense that you have to be fast and learn it quickly and be physically fit as well. You know, you can't be a wimp.
Coming into Corrie is kind of like chasing a big plastic bag in the wind. It's like literally you're going, and it's changing directions, and you're changing directions because you're going from one scene to the next.
If anybody else is thinking of striking, I just thought you should know we're this far away from liquidation.
And then all of a sudden the bag settles and you're going, I'm gonna grab it now and get some breath. And then you go, and it's off again in some different direction.
Rona's dead. Yeah, I killed her.
And you're like, where am I now?
You go from playing completely high comedy,
Mum, come out of there with your hands up.
which I love, to complete high drama. You stamped on our dead daughter's grave! Playing Liz, I get the best of both worlds because she goes from one trauma to another and tragedies sometimes, but she's really funny as well. I've had 3 haircuts while you've been collecting glasses.
I think I probably had experienced every single emotion by the time I'd left in my little 5 years there than I have since the 15 years I've left afterwards.
You'll be used to having police around, won't you? With all your exes being mad axemen.
Coming up, a groundbreaking role for a young Corrie actress helps to change British law.
People would come up to me and say, when are you and Roy going to get married? And I'd be saying, well, we're not allowed to under current, British law. And they're like, never mind that.
For the past 6 decades, the mellow bellow of the unmistakable Coronation Street trumpet called the nation back to their living rooms to enjoy another instalment of the world's longest-running soap.
It was like a siren's call. And it was like you could not break that period it was on television. Everything stopped.
My dad had lyrics that he always sang to the theme tune. So every time it comes on now, we as a family have to sing them. Oh, Coronation Street, you make my life so sweet. 4, 5, 6 times a week, Coronation Street.
The street regularly attracts audiences in their millions, drawn to the fiery female leads who are never afraid to stand their ground.
It's just, have Mr. Connor and Mr. Connor okayed it? It's just that we've got them dead.
Mrs. Connor's okayed it. So I need to know.
I think all the women since I've been in it, and before that, when I used to watch it, have been the top players.
And I still want to be a brazen blonde when you finish. I don't want to have faded.
Since I've left Coronation Street, I've played some amazingly strong characters, don't get me wrong. But I think there's less characters outside Coronation Street for us than there is inside.
What's transformed many of Corrie's actresses into the stars they are today is the fact that on this soap, they're put in charge of exactly how they play their character.
They give you a background, a short history of how the characters are going to be and what had happened to them. You can't change the scripts ever. They are set in stone, but they give you the freedom of how to play it.
I am Steve's wife, only that just doesn't seem to bother you.
Oh, you don't know how much that bothers me.
If you do a play, bang, you do the play, bang, and it's off, done. To be in something that's ongoing, you've got a chance to develop and evolve and understand the techniques and what's needed and your character and everything.
Now that's what I like to see, a dedicated workforce. Is any? Carla? No, I didn't have a clue what she was. And I just thought this place needs a strong female character.
Come on, buy me some bling.
You have to hit the ground running, whether you think you're going to stay or not.
Coronation Street has had many remarkable female leads over the years, none more so than Hayley Patterson, a trailblazing character who quietly made television history.
The introduction of Hayley was very interesting. The decision to make that character transgender was a very bold decision. It was really groundbreaking at the time.
I've not really been out with anyone before. Not on a date.
No, well, nor have I.
The part of Hayley was initially brought in to be a bit of a joke. So Roy was supposed to have a series of disastrous dates, and his date with Hayley was going to be the first of these, and it would end with her coming out to him as trans, and that he would be appalled, and that would be the end of that. Never in my head. That was never my thoughts about the way this character was going.
It's been a wonderful evening, Roy. Thank you for everything.
No, thank you.
In the first instance, it was quite difficult because it was top secret. So what I decided to do was just do as much research as I could and then just play her as Hayley. Just play her as the person she was, but with a shyness and a diffidence that came from like not really being totally who she should be yet. I was born a boy. I was brought up a boy. If your mind's one thing and your body's another, it's very different.
Julie was so worried about getting everything right and so concerned because you are one of the very few, if not the only, trans character. And not just that, you're not in a series for 6 weeks that might not come back. You're on screen every night in people's living rooms, and so you've got a real responsibility to get that right, absolutely, yeah.
What I'd like is if eventually you and me could possibly think of having a relationship.
I'd like that.
Would you really?
Yeah, more than anything.
You just accepted it. She changed her sex, and that was it. Live with it, you know, which seems to me to be what underlies it all is life. Live it. Get on with it. Whatever it throws at you.
It was all about Hayley, who just happened to be trans, and I really think that helped an awful lot of people. And people talked about it. It was just a great thing to do.
Whoa! Whoa!
Ordinary people watching Corrie really got behind the relationship of Roy and Hayley and really wanted it to work. So I'd be shopping and people would come up to me and say, when are you and Roy going to get married? And I'd be saying, well, we're not allowed to under current, British law. And they'd be like, never mind that.
I give you this ring as a token of my love, now and always.
It now gives me the greatest pleasure to declare that you are husband and wife.
And before we knew it, it had been talked about in Parliament. It was a real proud moment in my life, being the face of that. The law changed over the time that I was playing Hayley. Things changed in seismic ways for transgendered people. And I feel really proud to have been part of that.
The Street prides itself on portraying real issues that women experience in everyday life, however painful it is for the actresses playing the part, and has often been the first to tackle taboo subjects long before they hit the headlines.
One of our great producers, Tony Wood, he sat me down and he said, we've got this idea about this very, very controlling man that Shelley falls in love with. And I said, right. And I said, he wants you to lose weight. He starts chipping away at a very, very tiny bits. And I started to research it and getting really into it.
The factory coven. Pile in at 12:30 on the dot. You, in full war paint, with that gorgeous smile of yours, are going to be behind the bar to greet them.
He took her apart, bit by bit and piece by piece over about a year. He cut her off from her family. He cut her off from her friends. He started to make her question herself, doubt herself, and rely on him 100% of the time.
OK. So you don't want what I bust a gut to buy for you. Your nights on the town, your fancy dresses. And these.
The last storyline was particularly horrific for me to do. Because even though you're mentally not thinking that way, your body thinks it is. So you start getting sort of dry skin patches and it's ridiculous. Your body tells you the stress that you're portraying. I know that sounds a bit... It's got to come out somewhere, basically.
Sally was just amazing to work with. She is funny, she's quick-witted, she's such a committed actor, and it was quite upsetting for both of us. It was pretty attritional between the two characters.
I don't want to be like this. The thought.
What was amazing about it is how much it influenced the audience. And this is before social media. My letters just went through the roof. I mean, I had people like from domestic abuse charities saying, we've got some girls, can they come in and speak to you? It's like opening a tinderbox of emotion.
Will you take Charles to be your husband?
No.
I'm sorry?
I can't do it.
Oh, this tops a lot, this does. I'm sorry about this, mate. She's been having a few problems
No,
upstairs.
I mean, yes, I have been having a few problems and I keep blaming myself, always myself. But it's you, Charlie. You made me feel scared and you made me feel inferior. I can't trust you. I can't marry you. Yes, yes, yes.
Sometimes there's only soap opera can lift that lid up. You can have the most famous politician rock star in the world with a big megaphone on television. Nothing will affect the public in this country as much as a soap opera.
Coronation Street writers have never shied away from tragic storylines. But when they gave much-loved character Sally Metcalf breast cancer, it became the toughest challenge of actress Sally Dinavor's life.
I found a lump. I've got cancer.
I was told that we were playing a breast cancer story. I was really looking forward to doing this story because I met somebody, my next door neighbour, who'd had breast cancer. So I thought it was a really important issue to tackle. Is it likely to be terminal? And then I just suddenly got it in my head that maybe I should just go along to our nurse and have a checkup because, you know, I never even thought about it before. And I found out I had breast cancer myself, which was, I mean, a complete shock. Unbelievable. I would never have gone to see the nurse if it hadn't been for that storyline.
Are you okay?
It saved my life.
What if it's spread?
Hey, stop this.
I had to leave to get well again. But at the same time, it's really strange. I was thinking about myself, but I was also thinking about Sally. I was thinking, this is awful. The viewers are going to go, well, she's got breast cancer and she's gone. She's just left, you know, without an explanation. I can't do that. But it was really bizarre because I was worried about both of us. I was worried about Sally and I was worried about Sally. So it was really hard.
The great thing, of course, is that Sally's all right now. We know that the character recovered, and obviously it's referred to sometimes in Coronation Street, but so fantastic that Sally got the all clear. She is inspirational.
Coming up, the women of Weatherfield remember walking on the cobbles for the first time.
It was like walking through a northern Madame Tussauds and everybody had come to life. And after the first day, I went out on Oxford Road and I threw up in a bush because of the nerves that I'd managed to keep in all day.
Okay.
Coronation Street has been serving up a hearty hot pot of high drama for 60 years. Never just passive wives or sexy mistresses, Corrie put women centre stage in loving, fragile, aggressive and edgy roles.
You try it and I'll have your eyes out.
One saw them in difficult, tricky situations. They were coping, and they kind of told the rest of us how to cope.
Oh, well, you find it very different up here. There's some very funny people in this street.
Ina Carson, beautiful. She set the tone for the battle axe, the powerful woman, the old woman who speaks her mind and doesn't care what effect it has.
She's terrifying. Ina was I love the fact that everybody was terrified of Ina Sharples. Even these big, strong guys, they just sort of dissolved when she just looked. She just one look, and that was it.
I've never been one to turn me back on a row, and I'm blowed if I'm going to allow it to interfere with my pleasure.
Ina Sharples, who was the crow, the judgmental old cow, sanctimonious, hypocritical, but so funny because of that, because, of course, people love that character.
Hilda Ogden all day long for me. They were strong women, and I loved the broken way that they spoke.
I want my money, what you owe me. I don't think this is either the time or the place to discuss your emoluments. Oh, don't go chucking your big words at me. I eat them for breakfast.
She could go from gossip to sort of being very, very vulnerable in a matter of seconds, and that's genius to be able to do that. I thought she was really, really an incredible actress. And I actually got on with Jean really, really well. I mean, she'd really helped Michael and I in those early days, advising us and telling us what she thought. And I'd ask her, what do you think about this? And she'd help me. She was brilliant.
Yeah? Never you do that again, you frighten the life out of me.
Annie Walker behind the bar was very funny, but she didn't have jokes. She was funny because of who she was, in the situation she found herself, and her relationship with her customers, with her bar staff.
My, we do look smart.
Thank you, Mrs. Bolton.
Praise from me is praise indeed.
She was the sort of queen of the Rovers, and she was royalty, and she expected everything to be like that, and to be banned from the Rovers was to be banned from life.
Come on, that's it. Bit more. Hooray!
Rocket Venus, 1961.
Elsie Tanner was one of my favourite characters. She used to do scenes with just her underskirt on and proper feisty 1960s woman.
Look, if it's all right for you to look at her bird in miniskirts and go, yum, yum, then I'm not going to be ashamed of liking to look at young men.
Pat was an extraordinary person because she was very attractive, very intelligent, very good actress, very strong character, but incredibly sensitive. She could be brought down and reduced to tears. She had a vulnerability, and I think that was part of her attraction.
Tony Warren actually said to me, "You're my Pat Phoenix. You're my modern-day Pat Phoenix," and that literally made me like, what have you just said? And he disappeared off up the stairs and gave me a wink. But that was a massive compliment.
Fred, keep that out, will you? You might just catch it on an handbag.
Bette Lynch is just the queen of camp. She was amazing. So she had all the leopard print, all her hair, massive, like, big nails and earrings, and she didn't take any messing from anybody.
Oh, you can laugh, Gordon. But he's right about one thing. I am in charge. Get it? Got it? Good.
She was dead hard. You really, really wouldn't want to cross her. She knew who she was. She had her vulnerabilities, but she was a great character.
And after 56 years on the cobbles, one of Weatherfield's most celebrated stars is still serving confectionery at the Cabin.
At this time of the day, I like my tea like I like my men. Hot, strong, sweet.
It's very important that Coronation Street has characters that go back over the decades, and Rita is such a wonderful example of that.
Rita Littlewood.
Dennis
She is one of the heartbeats of the show. My first scene was with Barbara Knox in the Rovers, and you step out of yourself and you're going, not only am I in the Rovers, but I'm opposite Rita.
I think Rita's character's really evolved a lot. I mean, she went from being, she's a bit of a good time girl, she's a bit naughty, she had a few relationships, and really now she's the matriarch.
Stupid contraption.
Norris, are you sure you've asked that card stand to dance?
Probably the first 3 days I was there, all I had to go over was drop a drink there, and I couldn't say this line, and I did it 3 times, and I said, "I'm so sorry, Barbara, it's because you're Barbara Knox, I can't speak."
And back in the 1970s, away from the cameras, these indomitable women were more than aware of their celebrity status.
I'd never seen anybody rehearse like that in evening dress, practically, and skirts and things. I thought, you're a tech Grundy. Ooh, ooh. But then I realised something. A lot of the people that were in Coronation Street then had never thought they were going to be suddenly elevated to that sort of exposure and become stars.
And for young actors making their debut in the show, coming up against the women of Coronation Street was an intimidating but inspiring experience.
I've never been any good at telling people what to do.
Don't be so wet.
The first day of going into Corrie, anyone will tell you, is a pretty full-on experience.
I might be able to get the pick of your cast off.
You're not that desperate. 30 years ago, when I started, I had the most amazing female characters, and those actresses trained me in the way of Coronation Street.
So you're Elsie Tanner? Yeah, Jim's told me about you. I remember my first scene, I had to sack Elsie Tanner.
I mean, that for a start. I mean, you don't go in and you say, hello, how do you do that? Next minute, you're going and having a rouse scene with Pat Phoenix and telling her she's not needed in the cafe anymore. I thought I was going to die.
Well, I mean, if you do come back, it'll not be as Great White Chief, will it? I mean, you'll just be another dog's body on dog's body's wages.
Could you give me a couple of days to think it over?
Well, suit yourself, but don't take too long about it, eh?
Well, when I first went into the show, most of my scenes, even before I started working with David properly, were with Amanda Berry, who plays Alma, and she was an absolute legend to me. She was so brilliant in showing me the ropes and telling me just quietly how it works.
Do you like it?
Yes, I was just wondering where to put it.
I was a bit frightened of Vi Carson for absolutely no reason, because she was a wonderful woman. And I think that's because of her character, no other reason. On my first week, I sat on her chair, because they all had their own chairs. And woe betide you if you got the wrong one. And she just said, that's my chair, dear. Yes, Miss Carson.
For me, it was petrifying because it was like walking through a northern Madame Tussauds and everybody had come to life. And after the first day, I went out on Oxford Road and I threw up in a bush because of the nerves that I'd managed to keep in all day.
I hope Alma's not leading you astray, Hayley.
Astray?
We'd be in the office with all the greats.
Yes, ladies, what can I get you?
And it'd hit you like a ton of bricks suddenly. You'd suddenly just go, I'm in the office. What am I doing here? I'm not 5 years old watching it with my mum and dad and brother anymore. I'm actually in here, and it is quite an overwhelming thing.
From the opening episode to the present day, the women of Weatherfield have had unmistakable looks. Real roles, real clothes. All you had to do was act the part.
Liz got voted the worst dressed woman on television, and I think that's probably correct.
Oh, Liz, the fashionators of Liz.
This is from a job interview.
Oh, little Hayley, look at her.
Me, no matter what I do, I end up a mess.
Hayley, just stop selling yourself short. You look wonderful.
Oh, Hayley. And you'll be wearing that cardigan for the next, I don't know how many years.
Brilliantly liberating to play. The nastier the skirts and blouses, the better, as far as I was concerned.
If I was out buying my own clothes, I used to get Shelley something, and I'd always get her something a bit smaller, just to look, really, in the leather pants and all that malarkey. I don't think I'll get in them now.
Come on then, Hayley, let's hit them shops.
Hayley's entire look was me and the costume designer. So we went round the shops and found the iconic red anorak in Dorothy Perkins. There was a headline in one of the national newspapers a couple of years later saying that they'd had to stop this line of red anoraks because nobody was buying them anymore, because Hayley was no fashion icon.
I find it really difficult to play her if I'm wearing flat shoes. She can't walk in the shoes, but she has the highest heels, and that helps get into character.
I completely assumed that I would be wearing a wig because my hair was short and bleached at the time. And I went in and they were like, well, that's no good. And I said, oh, I thought I'd have a wig. So they had to find one. I mean, we just found it in a cupboard and shoved it on my head, and that was it. And Hayley was born.
Shall we sally forth then?
Just this morning, I walked into my dressing room and there were two tops hanging up and a little note stuck on them that said, what do you think of these for Liz? And they are truly awful, but Liz would love them.
Apart from an often misjudged sense of style, what has always united the women of Coronation Street is the knack of turning disaster into comedy, with a weary look or a witty one-liner.
That isn't a problem. That is just a relic of my sordid past.
I think there is a great tradition, and it spans the decades, of these wonderfully vivid, strong women characters who can give you great drama, but also give you great comedy.
I'm sorry I'm late, Mrs. Walker.
Bet you've got it on back to front. It wasn't played for comedy. It was comedic and funny because it was real and it was true. We were kind of guided towards the funny side.
When it comes to gossiping in this street, I'm right at the back of the queue.
I mean, if it was drama and heartache all the time, you'd be worn out, wouldn't you? So you've just got to have something to lift and make you laugh.
May I say that I think you're looking particularly...
Night, girls.
I
Oh my gosh, if I get a line that I think is funny, I am so excited to shoot it. But sometimes you don't even realise it's funny.
I spent a small fortune on this outfit.
Yes, sometimes it's not meant to be comedy. Long may that last, please God, yes, because that's the icing on the cake.
I love orchids. They remind me of ladies. Never mind. I think comedy is one of the most important strands of the show. It's part of its DNA. And I'm so amazed that my character as Mary is fed into that now. And when that jury came back and we had those magic words, not guilty. Oh, I've never been happier to lose a fiver in my life.
I remember when Mary first hit the screens, and it was such an extraordinary character and an extraordinary performance. I just loved what Patty did with that character, and in some senses, Mary is a very old-fashioned character. You might have found a character like that in 1960s Coronation Street, but she's also contemporary and relevant, and some of the things that happened to her, albeit slightly ridiculous, are things that our modern audience would identify with.
And Mary, to this day, is one of the most popular characters we hear back time and time again. Because she's so human, she's relatable. A lot of people would say, oh, I have an aunt just like Mary. I'm sure they didn't.
I like the name Guy, though as a child I thought it was pronounced Gooey.
And the show's talent for comedy is shared and passed down through the comic performances of generations of Coronation Street actresses.
Just wanted to talk to you about New Year's Eve.
Ah, well, as long as the word is double time.
I learnt from the best, Betty Driver. She was quite, elderly when I started, but she used to come in and at 11 o'clock, put her fake glasses on, come in, steal the scene, and get in a big car and go home again. She was a genius.
Cheers again, Bob.
Cheers.
Oh, she's being posh. Look at the hair, look at the fingers.
What's that lipstick taste of?
Woman stamp. Woman.
That was wonderful. That's Corrie. That's Corrie. That's the humour.
It's a funny-looking thermometer, this.
It's rectal, but it's been through the dishwasher.
Blanche was one of my favourites. She was a real queen of the streets. Certainly for gay writers like me and Jonathan Harvey, we just pounced on the chance to make this woman worse and worse and worse because viewers lapped it up.
Alcohol loosens the tongue. Well, you must have talked 10 to the dozen with drink inside you. I've never heard so much self-indulgent whinging in all my life. Blanche. Is there some correlation between how boring you are and how much you drink?
Blanche.
My God! I didn't realise just how good that scene was. And Blanche is there quite happily saying what she thinks and not like beautiful scene. Tony Warren could have written her. She was the old person who does not worry about what they say. They speak the truth, which I think is wonderful.
You want to get out more. Wait till you try bingo. You'll hyperventilate.
Sadly, we've lost many much-loved Weatherfield women over the show's 60-year history.
Get off. Liz Dawn, Lynn Perry, I could go on forever. And they were, even though they were icons, and the characters they played were legendary. The actresses were just so giving and feisty. You know, you knew where you stood with them.
Jelly shouldn't run.
But few female characters were as treasured as Deirdre Barlow, played by Anne Kirkbride.
Come here.
A Coronation Street icon for 43 years until her death in 2015.
Anne was the most beautiful person. She was a lovely person, very vibrant, full of life, full of humour. Her laugh was never far away, and an immaculate, natural actress with a steel trap of a brain.
It's Ken, he knows. I've told him everything.
Get out of this house. Shut up! I'm warning you. Get out of this house.
As an actress, she was just incredible. She never fluffed her lines. She never tripped over words. As soon as she knew we were going for a take, she used to say, OK, I'll just click into Deirdre land now. And that's exactly what she did.
Leaving fuck! That man in there obviously thinks he's married beneath him.
When we did the big emotional scenes, I put a lot of anger into that. And it shook everybody. But it shook Anne, but it didn't knock her lines out. So she could carry on. That's why those scenes went so well.
This is my bestest friend in the whole world, Deirdre.
On screen, Liz and Deirdre had the most amazing relationship. But in real life, Annie and Beverly had a great relationship. I found it really difficult because she died in my arms.
You lose a colleague, and I lost her personally. I know I could go to Anne with anything, and she was just a beautiful person.
You have a great sense of emotion. We miss her every single day, every single day.
Coming up, the agony of walking away from Weatherfield.
I remember on my last day, absolutely, I couldn't breathe. I was crying that much.
Coronation Street is a television institution. The world's longest-running soap has been a feature in everyone's lives for 60 years and is still one of the UK's most watched programmes, which means overnight fame for anyone who joins the cast.
You don't become a star in Coronation Street, but you are literally a household name. Everybody knows you. No matter where you go, anywhere in the world, people know you.
And then one day I went out and that was it. And my life has never been the same since.
I don't go out. I get head down syndrome. So I walk across the street and I normally put my head down and I don't really know what's going on.
It's all part of the job, and if you can't do it, then don't do it.
It's just lovely to be here.
What amazes me the most is teenage girls are so possessive of Mary. They think she's hysterical and they will defend her to the hilt. It's wonderful.
You want it, you want the recognition, you know, and people say that they don't, but there's a little bit of you that craves it. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like Madonna or something, it's great.
And after all the recognition and rewards that come with being such a popular show, walking away from the street can be a painful process.
To me, at the end when I went, it was heartbreaking, actually. It was sort of like ripping out lumps of roots.
Yeah.
Again.
Hi, Rita.
I'm enjoying it.
Well up.
Thank you.
I left Corrie on the Monday, I think, and then I had my leaving party on the Friday. And so in between, I took myself off to the lakes with my dog for a couple of days because I just needed a couple of days just to take in what had happened to me, actually, and start planning the future and thinking forward, but also just giving myself a chance to properly reflect on it and mourn it in a way.
It was a hard decision because these are my family. You know, I remember on my last day, absolutely, I couldn't breathe. I was crying that much. Annie had made this beautiful video for me. I've still got somewhere. And, oh, God, I couldn't breathe. It was just so sad.
However heartbreaking it might be to leave, many former street stars have taken the training, skills and professionalism they learnt on the cobbles and gone on to forge successful careers.
There are so many examples of actors who've come through the programme and gone on to do amazing things outside of Coronation Street. Actors like Kate Kelly and Suran Jones and Sarah Lancashire and Julie Hesmondhalgh. That absolutely proves the quality of the acting that is in the show.
I always think the world of you, Kelly.
Sarah Lancashire and Suran Jones, you just knew they were going to be stars because they They were brilliant in Coronation Street, and they've gone on to do so well, and we're so proud of them.
You look great.
Oh, I look better than great, Steve. I mean, nobody holds a flame to me around here.
Exactly.
I'm sure they do thank Coronation Street because that was the window where people could say, oh my God, that's good. With all the little drama they had to do, or the comedy.
Oh, and I met a Frenchman in coffee who taught me how to say, isn't it a lovely day today? Voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir?
It gave me the biggest break in the world, and I was damn good at it. You know, and it taught me everything I know.
It took me from, you know, being 20-something daft, unemployed actor to, like, somebody who's, like, out in the world doing work that I'm really proud of. I met my husband on it. I had my kids while I was in it. I made friends for life on it. And, you know, that character helped in a small way to change the world a little bit.
And after 60 glorious years, the women of Coronation Street are still laughing, loving, fighting and feuding, and they're not about to throw in the towel yet.
I can't believe I've been here over 30 years.
Oh my God.
Give me a drink. I so hope it goes on for another 60 years.
To celebrate the anniversary of the show, the new book 60 Years of Coronation Street is available now from bookstores and online retailers. There's film comedy over on ITV4 next tonight with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost in Hot Fuzz. And brand new tomorrow night on ITV and part of Crime and Punishment, Death Row's Women with Susanna Reid is at 9. Next, it's the news at 10.